Hey, and welcome to today's Clutter Corner. I'm super excited to have you guys join me today. I'm Angela Brown from the Clutter Corner, and today I have a special guest with me, Kathy McEwan. And she is a certified professional organizer, and she's the previous owner of a multi six-figure home organizing company. She's a mom of 5 kids, and she has a podcast called Organize for Success. So I'm really excited that you guys are joining me here today. Please help me welcome and please bring your questions because we're going to have lots of opportunity to ask our questions to Kathy McEwan. So, Kathy, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on.
Well, thank you for joining us. I love this topic because there are so many people that are motivated in 2023. This is the year that people are actually uncluttering all those places in their homes. The stuff has kind of just been set aside and they've been working their way around it. And this is the year they're getting rid of it. So I love this conversation and I'm glad that you're here to help us navigate this.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. So my first question is, how did you find yourself in this space? Because as a certified professional organizer, you had to make a choice that this is what you wanted to do for a living.
Yes, that's so true. And it's funny because when I first started, my thought process was I wanted to create more time for people. I just wanted to go in their homes. I wanted to tidy up their homes for them so they could spend more time with their children or doing things they love to do. But I learned very quickly that it's not just about tidying up people's homes at all. It's really life-changing for people. And I realized there was a lot of people that really, really struggled with this. And so I quickly changed my whole thought process of the business and geared it towards helping people. I mean, some of them have, ADHD, they have traumas in their life, depression, etc. So yeah, it's definitely not about tidying up. I learned that very quickly and decided to really pursue it. And I took a lot of courses. I got educated in ADHD and time management and all that, which really, really helpful. And then my degree is sociology, so that helped a lot as well. So I was actually, I find it way more rewarding knowing that I'm changing people's lives rather than just tidying up their homes. For sure.
Well, and we have a question here, not a question, but a comment from Priscilla. And she said, first she said, thank you for this valuable content. And I'm so excited that you're here, Priscilla. Thank you. And then she said, and I just moved. I can't believe the clutter I packed, listening real time and unpacking. So she's actually unpacking while we're having this conversation right now. So Priscilla, I love that. Thank you for the inspiration and thank you for joining us.
That's funny.
So let's start back at the very beginning. Let's say, for example, that all of us probably have a little too much clutter in our homes. How do we start where we are and just decide that this is something we need to grab a hold of? And where do we begin?
I think that's the number one question people ask all the time. And I think that's their struggle is they don't know where to begin. So I usually suggest that you begin by picking one room that you would love to get organized first. Something maybe that's not too complicated to go through. So maybe not your, sentimental items they're going through first, but, start in one room and focus on one room and then focus on one task in the room. If there's a lot of clutter and maybe you're tripping over a bit of your clutter, then I usually start with the floor and suggest that you work your way around the room, because as you're picking up things to decide if you're going to keep them or not, you're creating space already if you start to let some things go. So usually people who have a lot of clutter, they have too many items. So really it's the decluttering process at the beginning, and that's letting go of what you no longer need. And I usually say, like, it's overwhelming if you have a full home or if you have a couple of rooms, it can be overwhelming. So start with one and then one small area of that room. So for example, if you're doing a bedroom, then maybe start with on top of your nightstands or at top of your dresser, and then going through the stuff and then just focusing on one small task at a time.
So when you say one, and let's get more granular with this, when you say
Yeah.
one small room of your house and then one small area and then one item, are you talking about going in the bedroom and going to the bedstand and saying, I'm going to remove all the medications from the bedstand and then put them where they go so that they're not all just loose and around and I forgot that I have them, or grabbing all the lotions and the Vaseline, whatever you got, and then you put that where it goes so that you don't have a whole bunch of weird random stuff that you can't find in the dark when you go looking for it.
Yeah, exactly. And so usually what I recommend is that you go through the items that are on your, say, your nightstand, and what doesn't normally belong there, that's what you want to take off, because sometimes we might have a cup, but we don't need the cup every day kind of thing. Or maybe there's books on there that you've already read, for example. So really it's going through the items that you keep on your nightstand that you don't need it to be there and putting it back where it belongs. And then keeping the things that you do want on there. Like if you find having your medication there is helpful for you, then leave it there, and maybe put it in a container so it's not falling over, or something like that. But the limit as much as possible in the certain spaces.
And I love that you brought that up, the bedstand as an example, because I just got back from vacation. And when I stayed at a hotel, I had everything that I unloaded from my suitcase and I put it on the bed. And then moving it off the bed so I could go to sleep, I moved it to the bedstand. And
Yeah,
then in the night, my husband is snoring and I went for the earplugs and boy, I could not find them.
find
I
them.
had to turn on the lights and go through a bunch of stuff. And I got my cell phone cord and I got like chargers and I got books and I got all kinds of
Yeah,
stuff on that bedstand. I'm like, why did I do that to myself? This is annoying. And then I
yeah,
couldn't find what I needed when I needed it. So
yeah.
I love that you brought this up as an example. So what are some of the reasons that clutter is interrupting our lives? How does it affect people's lives?
You know what? There's a lot of reasons why clutter is affecting many people's lives, and there could be different reasons. One, it could be that they never really learned how to keep their homes tidy. So if you've never learned the skills, how do you expect somebody to be able to do them? They need to learn the skills. Sometimes it's somebody who's just like suffering from trauma or depression, or has a busy lifestyle, like just super, super busy, and they're having a hard time finding time to keep up. So there's a lot of different reasons why people have clutter, and it affects them in so many ways. Like it affects them physically, because it could be tripping hazards, or it could be a lot of dust in the air because it's hard to clean their homes if it's cluttered. There's so many different reasons. It affects us mentally. Can be embarrassment for some people, right? So they're embarrassed to have their friends and family over. There's so many stress, feeling overwhelmed. It's all part of having a lot of clutter, unfortunately.
And so I would like to give everybody permission today to realize that you're not alone. I
Absolutely.
myself have too much clutter in some areas of my house, although I'm pretty good in other areas. And the areas that I'm not so great at, when I go into those rooms, I do feel different. I do feel like, oh, when am I going to get around to doing this? And I kind of beat myself up a little bit because I know I should take the time to tidy up. And if I don't have time, like if I get back from a trip and I just open my suitcase and I pull out what I need instead of actually pulling everything out, putting it away and cleaning it up and then being done with the suitcase and putting the suitcase back away. There are things like that that then make me feel bad about myself for a couple of days. And
Hmm.
so I'm as guilty as everyone, but I would like for us all to give ourselves permission to say, hey, I'm not alone. Because when we
Absolutely.
give ourselves permission and we are okay admitting it, that gives us the freedom then to say, hey, I'm in control and I can make a choice.
Absolutely. You're definitely not alone. It's so common. And yeah, I think a lot of people, I remember when I went into people's homes, I don't go into people's homes as much anymore. But we did for 10 years. And everybody, when I walked in, they'd often say, I hope my house is not the worst you've ever seen. And you know what? It wasn't. It wasn't. And it's so common. And it's okay to have clutter. It's okay as long as you are working towards clearing some of that clutter out. Then you're doing gold. It's gold, right? When you're able to get started and make a change, but you're not alone. It's so common. It's so common.
Well, and I know that many people are in the process of change and they're empowered to change and they want to change. And then we run into a situation where, like you said, many people have never been shown how to declutter. And so
Right.
what advice would you give for the people that are just getting started and they're like, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm turning over a new leaf. I'm going to change my relationship with stuff. But but how do they begin? Do they call somebody like you and say, hey, show me how to do it?
They could. They definitely could reach out to me, because we've helped so many people over the years. I have free masterclass that, that actually the masterclass is really good because it tells them exactly how to get started, when to get started, where to get started. And then the other problem I think people struggle with is letting go of certain items. They have a hard time letting go. So in my masterclass, I do discuss that as well, on how to let go of those ones that you struggle to let go of. So definitely, I would recommend that you reach out for help if you don't know where to start. You can ask a friend if they can help you, a family member if they would. Some people are too embarrassed to do so. So asking for help from an expert is definitely another way to go, for sure.
Let's talk about the embarrassment for a second, because I know there are a lot of people that would love to ask for help, but they are afraid, like you
Yes.
said, that the person's going to come to my house and they're going to think this is the worst that they've ever seen, and then shame on me, right? How
Yeah.
do you overcome that if you are the person that wants to reach out for help?
um, just know you're not alone. Like, this is extremely common. And I think sometimes if they don't go to somebody else's house and they don't see it, if they go to a friend's house that's very organized, they might be thinking, well, how come they can keep it organized and I just can't? So just know you're not alone. It's extremely common. And reach out, even if you just reach out and say, help me, I don't know where to start, but definitely reach out for help. If you're too embarrassed to reach out for help and you want to try to do it on your own, then I would suggest that you just focus on a small task and spend 20 minutes a day if you can. And because I don't want to be too overwhelmed, you don't have to spend, a whole day decluttering your home. That's so overwhelming for most people. So even if you did 20 minutes and, you tackle something small every day, because if you do 20 minutes for a week, for 7 days, that's over 2 hours worth of work by the end of the week, right? So you're actually getting a lot done if you can even just set a timer for 20 minutes, or, you know, even if you're watching a show maybe and you want to grab a few pieces of paper that you have piled up and just to go through them. But just tackling small tasks at a time, I think, really makes a big difference.
And I want to highlight something you just said, because this is really important, and a lot of people don't know this. You mentioned how you think you're the only one because you don't go inside other people's homes. So, as a professional house cleaner of 25 years, I went into a lot of homes. And as I went into people's homes, their homes, like, you open the door and they walk you through the home and it looks lovely. And everything has a place and everything is in its place and it looks amazing, until you open a closet and the
Closet.
relatives were coming over and they shoved everything inside the closet, or they
Yeah.
have a whole entire room. We call it the scary room,
Yep.
where I'm not using this lamp right now and I just redecorated and I don't want to throw it away and I don't want to give it away and I might use it again. So I'll just put it inside this room and close the door, and then you don't see it. So when
Yep.
you go to someone else's house, you don't see the clutter. But I can't tell you in how many closets, I mean, linen closets and bedroom closets and bathroom closets and scary rooms. And then they've got the attic and they have a shed behind their house, and they have literally a whole house full of clutter, but they've like have organized rooms where everything looks tidy. And you walk in and you're like, something's wrong with me because my friend has this really tidy house. It's very possible that no, they don't.
That's right. Yeah,
And
it's true.
so
What's
while they
hidden
may,
behind closed doors, right? What's
yeah,
hidden behind the
and
doors.
and we always had to ask, is this a priority, or do you want us just to skip this room every time we come? And it became part of our business where we had to say, literally, let's bring in a professional organizer to
Mhm.
help you with this room.
Right.
Because if you're not going to use this stuff ever again, oh, it's been there for 20 years. If you're not using it for 20 years, don't let it take up space. You could be using this other whole room of your house. Make it a
Yeah.
craft room or a library or a room that gives you peace, right?
Yeah, it's so true. And that's exactly it. So most people, if there's a spare room or an office, it tends to be the one that gets things dumped in. It's usually the items they don't know where to put it, right?
Mhm.
So they don't know what to do with it, so it goes in that room. Or if you have a basement, the basement is another one. Or like you said, the shed or garage. If you have a garage, a lot of times things just get put in there. Those are often the things you just don't know what to do with. So,
Mhm.
the old saying, everything should have a home. or you should have at least space for it, then it makes it a little easier, but it's not always easy for people. They don't always know where to put it.
No, that's true. So you transitioned from a multi-six-figure home organizing company where you were inside people's homes and you were helping them organize to kind of an online company where you could help more people. Tell us about that and what motivated that.
Well, I'll be brutally honest here. There was two reasons. One, I wanted to reach more people. I didn't want to do a franchise. That's not something I wanted to do. My team would, and I would help as many people in my community as we could, but I couldn't really help as many people as I wanted to. I wanted to be able to reach more people. So that was the main reasons why I started this, starting doing courses and programs so I could reach more people. And then, to be honest, I actually started to not feel the greatest. I started to not feel well. And it's extremely physical doing home organizing. We did packing as well and unpacking, and it could be very physical. And I got to the point where I don't know, I'm much better now, but I was just sick for a little while. And I thought, I'm having a real struggle going into people's homes. Luckily, my team was wonderful, so I didn't have to go in too often, but I just decided that it was time for me to make that change. And I missed my staff. I missed going into people's homes. I still do, but I love what I do now because I am reaching people from all over, and it's been so rewarding. It really has.
So walk me through the scenario if someone is willing to reach out for help and they're willing to hire you and they do a virtual call. What does a virtual call look like and how does that work?
Yeah, so they can schedule a call on my calendar, and so it's easy peasy. They can pick the time that works for them, and then I'll hop on a call with them, and we will discuss what's their challenges are and what's the best approach going forward. And if the Clutter program, which is my signature program, is a good fit for them, I will let them know. If it's not, I'll let them know that as well. So if they prefer, not to do that program and they prefer to have more one-on-one with me, that is possible. I'm limited, obviously, because there's only so many hours in a day, but I still do one-on-one with people as well, but it's limited. And but yeah, I have so many things going on too. Like, we just did a 5-day declutter challenge, which was a really big success. And that was a lot of fun. So like, I'm always doing something to help people, even if it's free. Some things are free. And then obviously the Clutter program is really in depth. That is more, they're getting access to me every single week. So it's very, very supportive, that program. But it really depends on the person and what they're looking for. And I will direct them in whatever is the best way for them. And go from there.
Are there certain questions that people should ask you when they're trying to decide if they're a good fit for your program?
Yes. So one of the questions that I tend to ask them, or some of the questions I ask them, usually when they're calling me, they're usually just really overwhelmed. They need help and they don't know where to start. But the program that I have, it's geared towards people who have a lot of clutter. So if they only have a bit of clutter, it's probably not the program for them. I would suggest instead just doing a virtual call with me or something. But this program is designed by rooms, which I like, because that way, if you've got your kitchen, your bathroom, your bedroom to do, it's all laid out for them by room, which is really nice. And if they're willing to do the work, they have to be willing to really do the work and watch the modules as well. So, some people, they may find it harder to do that, but it's really easy. The program's laid out very easy, step by step. So I try to make it as easy as possible for everyone. So most people actually will benefit from the program for sure.
Well, I love that you have broken it down in step by step, because that makes it easy to follow and then easy to check off and then go, hey, look, I can see my progress because I went through the steps and I checked them off and ta-da, now I have the result, right?
Yeah, exactly. And how to stay organized is in the program as well, because that's so important. You have to know that, once you get it organized, I want you to be able to maintain it. So that support is in there as well.
What are some common challenges that people face when they try to declutter their homes? And how do you help them overcome those challenges?
I think one of the biggest challenge for most people is having a hard time letting go. Like that is definitely, whenever they have any kind of sentimental items or gifts or, they might need it one day, right? The old saying, well, what if I need it one day? And if it costs them money and they think they're throwing the money out. So really, I'm helping them understand the process of letting go and that it is still okay to let go of gifts just because it was a gift. And so that is probably one of the biggest challenges for them. The second challenge is sometimes they don't know where to bring things. Like they don't know what to do with them once they've decluttered and they've got it. Like, can I bring this to a thrift store or can I bring it to, a donation center, something like that? They sometimes don't know exactly where to bring things. And other challenges are they don't know how to organize it. So unfortunately, they might clear a space, but then they still have some items which they want to keep, which is great, but they still aren't sure on how to best organize it. And organizing is definitely key to maintaining it, as well as if you have a system in place that works well for you, then you're more likely to be able to maintain that organization. So they don't often know how to create a system that works, I find.
Speaking of system that works, I want to say hey to everybody that's jumped on today. You guys are so awesome that you guys are here. I'm super excited. We do have Priscilla. Priscilla says yes and thank you. We've got Carmen here. Carmen, it's so good to see you. We've got Penny and we've got Kay. I'm not sure who Kay is, but hello and welcome. We've got Muppet 929. Hey, everyone, I'll be listening and cleaning my fish tank. So we've got people packing and decluttering and cleaning out fish tanks while you're hanging out with us. Thank you guys so much. This is awesome. I just really appreciate you guys jumping in. We've got A. Rashi. Yes, I have a scary room. You know what? We all do. We all have scary rooms and we're all in the same situation. And I love the fact that we're willing to have these conversations. And I want to go back to just a second to something that Kathy said a minute ago about what happens if you have gifts that you want to honor the person, like you don't want to refuse their gift and you don't necessarily want it. You can get as creative as you want to go. In my company, we have a Monday morning meeting. And in our Monday morning meeting, one of our funnest moments, it's like the highlight of my week, we have what we call Lousy Prize Monday. And somebody brings a lousy gift that they got that they don't want, and they bring it, and then they pick a number from 1 to 500, and then everybody in the room picks a number, and then whoever ends up with the closest number wins the lousy prize. And then they're the ones that have to get rid of it because, well, it removes that person from having to make that tough decision. So what we've been doing, and this is really weird, we were talking about it the other day because we've been doing this now for about 6 months, but what's really weird is people are going through their houses and they're like, oh my gosh, that's a great lousy prize. And so they have this little shelf now of lousy prizes, the valuable things that they don't want to get rid of, but they know that it's going for this really fun game and someone else will either use it or they'll get rid of it. And so you don't always have to be the one to get rid of it. But we've started implementing the lousy prize in all of our meetings. So every meeting, people are like, hey, I'm going to win a lousy prize, or I get to get rid of a lousy prize. So it's just your creativity is just another opportunity for like, how can you get rid of this in a loving, kind way, right? Especially if you spent money for it or if it was a gift.
And what's really interesting for what you're telling me is that they may not have thought of those things as being a lousy prize. They just have it in their home looking at it day after day. But then now they know that they're going to bring a lousy prize. It makes them think more about what they have in their home, right? That they may not have thought of before. So that's really cool.
Well, and it was like my husband works at a car dealership. And so there are bankers and people that come through and they're trying to get his business. And so they bring these ad specialties. Like there's this really nice ball hat, and it was a white ball hat with their company name on it. And he doesn't wear white ball hats. He would prefer one that's dark. And so it's just a hat. Now, in the past, he would have brought it home and put it in his closet, never to be touched again. And it would have just sat there for years. But he came in and he brought me this whole basket of stuff. And he goes, hey, I found a whole bunch of lousy prizes that I will never use. And this is not my style, or it's not right for me, but you could give these away. And it was all brand new stuff that were like these trinkets that vendors had brought in. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. There was like this little tiny mini bag for like if you were going mini grocery shopping and you're going to buy something small, just weird little odds and ends that make lousy prizes. So I do encourage you to have parties like this. And I know last year for Christmas, my whole entire team got together and we were all thinking, what are we going to get each other for Christmas? And are we doing gifts? Like, what are we doing? So we did a white elephant and everybody decluttered their homes and they got the stuff that was good. And we wrapped it up in really nice paper, like wrap it up, make it look nice because we're going to fight for those gifts before we open them. And
Right.
then when they opened them, we went around the room. Oh my goodness, you won't believe people brought like 10, 20 gifts. And we're like, oh, this is awesome. And so then everybody was like trying to get rid of it. Like there were certain items that nobody wanted. And then there were
Right.
certain items that people like, actually, I could really use that. I needed one of those. And
Yeah.
so
You never
some
know.
people ended up with stuff they could use. And some people just was like, this is awesome. And then in the end, we had a great big box at the front door. And anything that you were okay to let go to the Goodwill or the Salvation Army, you put it in the box on the way out the door and you don't even take it home with you. So we had a lot of gifts that ended up after people fought for them or whatever, just weird odds and ends that they put in that box. And then immediately the following day it was discarded up. So that was a really fun way to get rid
Yeah,
of our.
that is fun. And I've done that as well, but I called it a swap party.
Ah,
So we would bring something that we don't want anymore. And I think we even narrowed it down to jewelry one time, but we sometimes it just could be random items. But everybody brings something they don't want anymore. And then they lay it out. And then other people might really want it. So they'll take it. My only thing is that I would say, like, to people, if I'm talking to some of my clients, those are fun. Swap parties are fun because you're bringing stuff to get rid of, but you don't want to bring everything back home with you, right? Because the whole
right.
idea is that you kind of want to let things go. So I'd always say it's great if you can bring 10 items and you only bring 1 or 2 back home, or,
Mhm.
instead of bringing 20 back home. So you don't want to double what you got rid of. But it was a great way because it was kind of like shopping in somebody's living room, but you're bringing items that you don't want anymore and letting other people have them. And then whatever was left over, like we had it, that was all donated. Whatever was left over, we donated.
Well, in our Hoarding World group, which is our Facebook support group for people that want to upload pictures or they want to say, hey, I'm working on this particular project and they need some, kudos and attaboys and, you got this kind of a thing. We have Saturday donations. And so every Saturday we encourage people to whatever you're decluttering for the week, take the boxes or the bags and drop them off at the donation center. Take
Yeah.
a picture of the item and use the hashtag I was here and post it in that group.
Yeah,
And
that's a
one of
good idea.
the cool things about that is we've made rules about that. Like you can drop it off at the thrift store, but do not go inside. Do not
Yeah.
bring back what you just
Yeah.
got rid of. Do not bring
Mhm.
back a replacement for that empty space. And
Yeah.
live with the empty space for 30 days until that becomes your new norm. And then, I mean, there's always an inclination like, there's an empty space. How do I fill that up? Don't fill it
You don't
up.
have to.
Yeah, just enjoy the empty space for a
Yeah.
few weeks and
Yeah.
let that become the new norm. And you'll find yourself not necessarily refilling that space, but saying, oh, look, I have an empty space. How great does that feel? And you get to feel something different for a change.
Very true. And you know what? It makes it harder for them. Well, how can I say this? Basically, with the thrift store that we have here, you go to the back, you drop off your donations, right? But they automatically hand you a 15% off if you go in and shop.
No,
Yes.
that's not helpful. I mean, it is if you're trying to save money, but
Yeah. So it's like I have to like explain that you don't necessarily have to take that 15% off if you don't need anything, right? So,
right.
but that's the thing. They get you to come in and shop. So you got to watch things like that.
And I think that rule also applies to clearance racks.
Yeah.
It's easy to go into a store like Walmart where everything is inexpensive, but then you walk in and what is the first thing to greet you as you get past the entryway with all the goodies? You see all these clearance racks and things are on sale and things are marked down. And you're like, oh, look, a savings. And so you
Yeah.
just go over there just out of curiosity because we're curious. We just want to see what there is. But the
Mhm.
rule is, do you need anything specifically right now? And if you walked into the store, you probably do. So go get the stuff you probably need that you came in the store for. Do not go to the clearance racks.
Don't go
If
to
you did
clearance.
not need it when you came in, do not go look at the clearance racks. I have a no clearance rack rule. I am not allowed. I do not allow myself to go to the clearance racks because I did not come in the store to find whatever's on sale. I came in the store for a very specific number of things. I'm going to get those things and I'm going to get right out of the store. And right now with online shopping, not to overspend, but just like with a shopping list, if I jump online and I buy something online, I type in the words, I'm looking for this specific thing. Then I
Yep.
put it in my cart and I get out. I don't want to go browsing through all the stores and going and looking at all the stuff online. I don't want to watch the videos of how they work. I don't want to do any of that stuff. Buy the thing, have it delivered, and I'm done. That way I don't even have to go into the store.
Exactly. Yeah,
Because
because you
those,
could end up in a tunnel, like just a vicious cycle of going through stuff. And before you know it, you've been searching for the last hour on Amazon or something, right? So,
well, and one of the things when my husband and I purchased our home, we had certain areas of the house that needed furniture. But we were very clear. What we're looking for in this corner is a coat rack, and it has to be multifunctional. In a perfect world, it would be a coat rack. It would hold umbrellas as well, or it would be a plant stand at the bottom or something that had like a decorative
yeah,
function, but useful as well.
right.
And so we're not going to buy one until we find that exact thing.
That one.
And it
Yeah.
was probably about 6 months after we moved in. We were wandering through a store. It might have been like a Kirkland's or an At Home or one of those stores. And we saw the perfect coat rack. And it had the same color scheme as our house. It was
Wow.
multifunctional. It was an umbrella holder and a coat rack. And neither of us said anything. We both just, one of us grabbed one end and one of us grabbed the other end and we
That's
put it
it.
in our
That's the
cart.
one.
But the difference was we weren't buying random things and trying them out in the space. And I mean, we're not home decorators. We were crystal clear about what we were looking for, the color scheme, that it had to be multifunctional. And now we're on the lookout for that one specific item. When we
Right.
found the item, we're like, yes, that's it. And it's been
Yeah.
there, I hate to say, it's been there now 15 years, and that's the only thing in that corner. But when we found the thing, then we bought it and the search was over.
Yeah, for sure. Otherwise, you're compulsive buyers, right? You don't want to be
Right.
compulsive.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Tell us about compulsive buying. What are some of the risks that people can get into without realizing they've gone down that trap?
They could end up with a lot of stuff and end up in debt. They're spending more money than they need to. It's overwhelming. I mean, I've had clients where I've walked in, and the thing is that the what happens is you get excited when you buy, and it's only when you buy that at that second when you put it in your cart and you buy, that's when it's the most exciting, but not when it's delivered necessarily, because I've had people where I've gone into people's homes that were shoppers and they hadn't even unpacked the bags yet that they bought, or the parcels were still in a corner. They hadn't even opened them yet. So that tells me it's not the item that you were so excited to receive. It was the thrill of buying, because, but that thrill ends up going away after, for a lot of people. So it's, it's really what I usually recommend is that you don't come if you say you're on online shopping, for example, that you see something you really like, you can keep it in your favorites or even in your cart, but I wouldn't buy it. I would not buy it until another 24 or 48 hours and see if by then you've changed your mind. A lot of times people have, no, they changed their mind. They realized later, oh, I didn't really need it. But at the moment it was exciting. They thought they did.
Well, and I'm glad you bring that up because I am a victim, just like everybody else, of online purchasing because it's so
It's
convenient.
easy.
And in the back of my head, I have a rule. It's a 21-day rule that I know I'm going to go through different biorhythmic changes and I'm going to be in a different mood 21 days from now. But one of the things that I really wanted, and I just got my mind set on it, like I got to have this, is this little tiny light bulb with a home security camera on it. And it screws into a regular light bulb holder. And I thought to myself, because I do a lot of YouTube videos on how to clean and stuff, instead of me going and getting a camera and setting it up and setting up with the light or whatever, when you walk into a room and you start tidying up or cleaning something, the light comes on and it starts filming you. So I got in the back of my head, I'm like, I gotta have one of these. So my first inclination was to jump online and to buy one, right? Like, this is so cool. And in my head, it was cool. And I think this is also a trap we get in where sometimes we think something is maybe cooler than it is. So I put it in my cart. I'm like, I'm going to buy this. But I have the 21-day rule. So I held off and I held off and I held off. And every time I'd go into the kitchen and, I'm actually dressed and I'm ready for camera, but I didn't set up the camera. So now I'm cleaning like for no reason. Then I was like, I need that little, that camera light bulb or whatever. But then what happened was, as I started doing the research on that particular camera, I discovered that the megapixels were so low that it was going to create a really grainy picture. And it
Oh,
wasn't
really?
actually going to work out very well for me. And then I was like, oh, wow, I just about spent a whole bunch of money on something that wasn't going to produce the quality that I'm looking for. So I started doing some research and what kind of camera does that. And there are lots of online videos of people that have done comparisons of different cameras. And when I got done, I was like, all right, it was a really great idea, but not so great as far as what I'm looking for, because the resolution just it's not quality enough that you'd want to put it like on YouTube or something like that. It was just kind of to let you see if somebody broke in your house or whatever is what I think it was really designed for. So then
You're,
I
you're
was,
not going to believe this, but
go
I
ahead.
actually bought one of those and I
Do you
have
love
not
it?
used it yet. I haven't used it yet.
Oh,
So
wow.
here's a classic example of me. I don't normally do that, but it's something with me and technology. I freeze. So I bought it thinking this is going to be really good for when I'm doing my videos, and
Mhm.
I still haven't tried it yet. So I'm going to have to research it and see if I should have done what you did and waited and researched it before doing. I mean, I checked the reviews, but that always doesn't help either. So
So
I'm going to need.
here's what I ran into when I started doing that search, because I ran into like really fine print on one of the things that said you can't use this with the 5G network. It has to be a 2.5G network. And I was like, well, wait a second. I'm pretty sure I upgraded my 5G network, so I'm pretty sure that's what I'm on. And so if it's clicking on and it's running off of the internet or the smart home system and it's on a different wavelength than what my service does, is it going to work anyway? Which then
Mhm.
drove me to another product. And then I started looking at the end quality of the other products. And so I did end up spending way too much time on this particular thing, but in my head, it made sense.
Right.
And sometimes I think we fall into that trap where it makes sense in our heads, but then,
Mhm.
like you said, you buy it and you're so excited about it. You put it in
Yep.
the cart, you get the dopamine high, like, yes, bought it. And
Yep.
then, well, wait a second, the technology eludes me. And you get it home and you open it up and take it out of the box. And it says, oh, you have to download an app. And then you have to like scan something. And then like the app has to activate it. And you're like, well, I'll do that in a little bit. And then you never get around to doing
And I
it.
forget
Right.
to do it. Yeah, I know. I don't do that very often, but I did do that. So when you were talking about it, I was like, oh gosh, guilty here.
Well, but here's the thing though, we all have those things. I mean, for
Mhm.
some people, it's going to be a kitchen gadget like a bread maker. And they're
Yeah.
going to go, oh my gosh, that will save so much time.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
they don't actually buy the ingredients to go along with the bread making or buy the yeast or whatever. So they got
Yeah.
the awesome bread mixer. And in the back of their mind, they're like, go buy the bread and the yeast and the flour and all the things you need to make the bread. And they never get around to it. And then there's this amazing, beautiful unit sitting in their pantry that's taking up space.
True.
I hate
Yeah.
that. Share with us, if you will, a story or an experience where one of the people that worked with you had some kind of a transformational experience and they went from wish they didn't to now their life is better.
Oh, there's so many. There's so many. Um, but the one that just comes to my mind now, because she actually sent me a message yesterday, so she's at the top of my mind, is one that a senior lady who had a lot of items, and her thought was, I don't want to leave these to my kids to deal with. I just don't. I don't want to leave it for my kids to have to deal with, which that is the best way, because your kids do not want to deal with this. I'm being honest here. They don't want to have to deal with it. So for her, I, we started working with her, and she has come a long way. She has let so much go, and she's learning how to do it herself. Like, she's taking 20 minutes a day or whenever she has the energy, because she is an older woman. She doesn't have a lot of energy. So for her, it was extremely overwhelming. She's like, how am I going to do this so that my children don't have to deal with this? And she's come a long way, like a long way. I'm so, so proud of her. So that's the one that comes to my mind right away.
What
But
was it about her that triggered the desire to take action? Because you said she doesn't move around well or she doesn't have a lot of energy. What was it that motivated her to say, I am going to do something about it?
I think it was her age, because she is actually now 84.
Oh,
I
wow.
think yeah, and I think we started working with her a few years ago. So she's been doing a bit every year, but she's come a long way. I think it's her age. I think, her health was starting to not be great. And so she was concerned that she just didn't want to leave it for her children. My recommendation is, you start that in your 50s. Don't wait
Mhm.
until your 70s to say, oh, I better do something. You can start letting things go in your 50s and 60s, right? So I would always recommend you do it earlier. But for her, I think it was her health and her age that she was concerned about, that she's like, I'm going to have to do something. And she also was tired of it. She was tired of seeing so much clutter. She just didn't know where to start. She just didn't know where to start, for sure.
You mentioned the 50s. Can you tell me more about that? Why would somebody want to declutter in the 50s?
I know it sounds young, but usually when you're in your 50s, often your kids have moved out. So you're often an empty nester. So you may think about downsizing in the future. And so I would highly recommend that you start then, when as soon as you know you're going to downsize in the future, then start right away. Don't wait. Like, I've had clients that have started like a week before they're moving. And I'm like, what? A week? You've only got a week to clear out your house? No, that is so stressful. So just do a bit at a time. And definitely you can go through things that you just don't use anymore. You might have been doing a lot more entertaining, or you might still have children's stuff. Like, sometimes they still have some of their kids' belongings when they were little. Things like that can probably be gone through, and so you don't have to worry about that later on.
And I love the fact that you said the 50s because I agree with the 50s. I don't know about anybody else, but when I got to the 50s, all of a
Mhm.
sudden menopause came. And suddenly the things that I always cared about and I was always really passionate about, I just really didn't give a rat's concern about anymore. It's just kind of like,
Right.
yeah, whatever. And
Yeah.
I realized, wait a second, I don't get to be in this space. But my hormones changed, and so did my energy levels, and so did everything else in my life. And I was just kind of like, who cares? Right. I didn't have the energy and the drive that I had when I was younger. And
Right.
so all of a sudden I'm in a different situation and I'm looking elder parents in the face going, wait a second, what happens when you go? What
Mhm.
happens to your house? What happens to your second house? What happens to your storage units? What happens to your sheds and your garages and your attics and your scary rooms? What happens to your greenhouses and all the stuff that you have? Because right
Right.
now, I don't care. And right now, I don't have the energy for my stuff, let alone all of your stuff. Right.
Exactly.
And I think there's a really specific window where when your kids go and you still have the energy and you still have the drive, you know what? Compartmentalize, compact your stuff. And I see a lot of people falling into a rut where they're like, oh, let me just organize the stuff I have. And they go out and they buy a whole bunch of storage units and bins and boxes and shelves and, wardrobes, and don't buy more stuff. Just get rid of more
Just get rid
stuff.
of what you don't need. Absolutely. Yeah. You don't need more. You need less. Less is more, right? The old saying, less is more.
Yeah, and it's interesting because my husband and I have talked about downsizing, and as we have, he's like, "Well, let's take this, 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 and this as far as the furniture goes." My thought is, why? Just because we had a piece of furniture that lasted us for 30 years doesn't mean we need to keep it for another 30,
No.
right?
Mm.
It's okay to pass it on. Say, hey, we had 30 good years of that furniture. It was awesome for 30 years and we took really good care of it. And now we can sell it and get something new or not replace it at all. Because if we're
Right.
downsizing, there are 6 or 7 rooms of the house that we're not going to have in the new place.
That's actually the number one problem when I worked with people who are downsizing. They actually thought they had more room than they did. So they were good at letting some things go because they knew they were moving into a smaller place, but they still ended up bringing more than they should, because they thought, oh, I'm sure it'll fit in. I'm sure it'll fit in. And then when we got to the new place, it would be like, okay, we need to do another purge because you still have too much. So that's actually pretty common when people bring things thinking they're going to have room for it, but they don't always have room.
And not only that, but if they can declutter before they move, they can prevent a lot of the moving charges and expenses and labor costs
Absolutely.
of hiring a company to come in and pack all your stuff up carefully and then move it and then
And then,
unpack it and
and then,
unmove it and then only to say, oh, I need to get rid of this.
yeah, absolutely. You'd save so much time and money and energy if you let it go before you move. Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the rooms in the house that people are going to keep, because I see a lot of people that are downsizing, but they still are keeping like the home office, for example. How do we stay organized if we're still moving some of those big rooms with us that are like the home office to a smaller house?
Well, you have no choice but to let some things go. It's not, you just won't have the storage. So it's a matter, when you're doing your office, you'd be surprised at how many paper clips you might have, or
Mhm.
how many notepads you have, or journals, or, you know, so some of that stuff can go. Like, you don't necessarily need to be, you really have to limit what you bring. Um, when the house is smaller, unfortunately, you may have to shop more often because you don't have the space. So it really just depends on what you have. But I just recently downsized. So, and I had three offices in my last house because of some of my staff used to stay since COVID started. I got rid of my office that was out of the home and made it in the home. And so I had to let go of a lot of things. And it was tough. It was tough sometimes letting things go, but I had to.
And it's
My
weird that you
office,
say
my
that.
bedroom, everything. I downsized is my kitchen. I had I had kitchen appliances because I love kitchen appliances, but I had to let some go that I just weren't using as often.
Well, there are a couple things you just triggered when you said the home office, and then also the kitchen appliances, because I thought I had so many kitchen appliances until I actually pulled them all out one day and I put them all on top of the countertop. And I realized I had like twice or three times as many as I thought I did.
Yeah.
And even weirder than that, I mean, I had like two crock pots that were identical and they were in different parts of the kitchen. And so I
Uh,
thought that I only had one,
one.
and that when I was using it, I was like putting it in different places. Oh, but I know
Yep.
where it is. I
Oh,
didn't
and it's
know
the
I
same.
had two. And I had two sets of the same things that
Yeah.
I thought I only had one. So I
One.
mean, it is an interesting exercise.
Yeah.
But during COVID, I also moved everybody into my house. And so I've got like 8 employees that are working out of the house right now as we speak. But
Wow.
what I did was I took rooms of the house that I wasn't using. Like I think a lot of people have rooms in their house that are, I don't know, like a formal living room or a formal dining room, or like these weird empty rooms in their house that, I don't know, homes used to just come with extra rooms, I think. And then
Yeah.
we filled them up. And so I said, if this was an office, what do I got to get rid of? And so
Yeah.
then renovating that one room so that it would just be wall to wall tables and chairs for the employees that came in that were working there out of
Yeah.
the house. And so with a
Mm.
little bit of renovation and permission, like, hey, and you mentioned this a minute ago, when we hit the 50s and our lives change and we downsize, you may not be downsizing, but your lifestyle may have changed.
Yeah.
And if your lifestyle changed, can you, and I'm asking you guys in the chat room, can you guys give yourselves permission to say that part of my life was awesome and it's over? And now I'm letting go of that stuff. Here's an example. I've been a swimmer for years. And so that meant I always had like my own kickboard and my own paddles and pull buoys and all my own gear and all that stuff. But I belong to a gym that has all that stuff. And so if they already have all that stuff, why do I have all my own?
Right.
I know it's not a huge amount of stuff, but why do I have all that stuff if I'm only ever going to use the stuff that's at the gym? I'm
Exactly.
using theirs.
Yeah.
So can I let go of some of that stuff because there's another version of it that I don't need to carry in my gym bag every day to the gym. I just use theirs when I get there and then leave it there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's change of our lifestyle and things we don't need anymore, right? So we really have to evaluate that as we go through our lives and see what is things we can actually let go that we just don't need anymore.
And being a mom of 5 kids, I'm sure you've dealt with a lot of decluttering situations where you had to get the kids involved. What
Yeah.
suggestions would you give parents who are still having kids at home that are still like they can't get rid of all their stuff yet?
Well, what I see when I was going into people's homes, or even now while I'm talking to clients, um, what I'm seeing a lot is that the kids aren't doing enough. The parents are, and it's often the mom, but sometimes it's the dad too. They're just doing so much, and the kids aren't doing enough. That's what I'm finding, and it's not easy because you feel like you're nagging them all the time, and you're trying to get on their case all the time. Um, but I was pretty strict. I bet you my kids would say that. I mean, we used to have family meetings in the living room. We would sit down, all of us, and I'd be like, have my checklist here and like say, okay, who's tackling the bathrooms this week? Who's tackling the vacuuming? They were lucky because there was five, so they got to split five ways. So, I mean, in that way, they were lucky. When it was me, when I was growing up, my sister was so much younger than me, and it was just the two of us. So I did a lot of that myself. But yeah, I had to teach them that they had to help out. It was only fair. And the earlier you start with kids, the better. Like even as a toddler, as they can walk, then they can carry a toy and put it in a bin. You can start
Mhm.
showing them how to do it. So that's, I think, the thing is that I find a lot of times parents let the kids get away with things when they probably shouldn't. It's hard. It's a challenge. It is. It's, you know, going from the kids not doing much to all of a sudden telling them they have to start doing more. It can be a challenge to get them into the habits and the routines and schedules of doing things. But if you can get through that part, it's so much easier. It's just so much easier to have them on board. For sure.
One of the things that, and I'm glad that we are having this conversation because there are a lot of parents, there are two schools of thought, and I get yelled at all the time from both sides.
Mm.
There are parents that are like, I want my kids to be kids. I don't want them to have any
Yeah.
responsibilities. I just want them to be a kid. That's their responsibility is to be a kid. They shouldn't have to be cleaning up. And so that's one side. The other side is, oh my goodness, the kid is looking for a sense of purpose. They're looking how they fit in with the community, and your family is a community. I mean, they all live under the same roof. Everybody has chores. Everybody does their part. And if
Hmm.
the kid never learns those skills, when they go out into the real world, they don't have the skills and the disciplines, and they don't know what to do. And
Exactly.
being a trainer of house cleaners, I cannot tell you how many people pay me an enormous amount of money and they come through my courses and they're like, we don't know how to do a vacuum. We don't know how to empty a vacuum. We don't know how to clean a vacuum after we've used it. We don't know like about the policies of the cord, if the cord gets frayed or if we are supposed to yank it across the room to make it come out of the wall. Like we don't know any of those things. And
Yeah.
a part of me, a little piece of me dies. I'm like, why didn't your parents show you this when you were young?
Mm.
Um, but it's the culture that we live in. Kids are stuck to video games and their smartphones and whatever, and they don't really participate. But what's really interesting, and we find lots of kids want to belong. They want to belong to something bigger than themselves. They want to feel like they provided value. They want to feel like, hey, I did something. Check it out. I washed the dishes. Check it
Yeah.
out. I cleaned up the bathroom after I brushed my teeth. And they're so proud of themselves when they are actually able to accomplish the things that the mothers and dads are harried, and they're like, why does no one help me? And the kids
Hmm.
are so delighted to be like, hey, check it out. I vacuumed the floor. Look how nice it looks. And I made special vacuum lines on the floor and it's so pretty. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important to change the framework of the chores and
Mm.
not be it you go clean your room and it becomes this punishment, but it
Right.
becomes, hey guys, it's time to clean our rooms. Who's going to clean their room first? Let's have an
Yeah.
inspection, and then let's have extra. I don't know what the reward is. Something that's non-sugary, hopefully, that
Yeah.
that gives them a reward for cleaning up their room. This is kind of off subject, but we use it a lot, and I use it with adults and kids. But we have what we call the happy bell. And so every time somebody cleans their room or they do something, they get the happy bell. And so we give them the happy bell, or people can ring the happy bell themselves if they have accomplished something. And so
Yeah.
it's the happy little dopamine high without the sugar. And we have them in all colors. Here's a blue happy bell, and I got a green happy bell. We've got them in, whoa, my color disappeared. Whoa,
right?
that's what you get. That's what you get for doing green screen. It disappears. I'll have to show you orange
Yep.
happy bell.
It,
So we have happy bells in all the colors, but they're in every room of the house. Somebody makes the bed, they ring the bell. Somebody washes the dishes, they ring the bell. Somebody wipes up after the bathroom, they ring the bell. And so everybody in the house is like clapping, like, "Hey, I heard a bell. What happened? I cleaned the bathroom." And you wouldn't believe this, but my husband, who's a grown man, is like
he
ringing
rings
the happy bell in the other room. He's like, "I washed the dishes." And I'm like, "No, that's awesome." He rings a happy bell and I ring my happy bell in acknowledgement. Like, "Yes, you did. That's awesome." Rings a happy bell. I took out the trash. I'm like, "Yes, one less thing for me to do." It's crazy. But I mean, all my employees, my husband, I mean, these are grown adults. These are grown adults and they're all like ringing the happy bells, right? So
yeah,
the kids can fall in line with that as well.
they can. And this is a little off topic, but kids also don't like clutter. They would prefer to have more space to play than toys. So that's one thing too that, when I'm working with moms is that they think they need to have all these thousands of toys. But what happens when you have so many toys and they're not organized, pieces are missing or it starts breaking down or things happen. And then the kids, they don't like that. They have mental clutter just like adults do. And they know what it's like to be in a home that has a lot of clutter compared to going to a friend's home that isn't. And they also like to have space to play. So sometimes if you have a lot of toys, there isn't a lot of space for them to play. And it's just something else to think about when it comes to raising the children and having toys. Just a thought.
And when you talk about mental clutter, I know that you specialize in a lot of your background and studies are in ADHD. What advice or strategies would you give to individuals who have ADHD and how they can maybe participate in the organization of their home?
Well, from my experience, those who have ADHD, and I think I even have a bit of ADHD. I'm not diagnosed, but I definitely see a lot of similarities between me and my clients. And what works for them is usually visual cues. So, having everything closed behind doors doesn't often work for them because they forget what's there.
Mhm.
So if they have any kind of visual cues, it helps them. So I usually recommend that they use clear bins so they can still kind of see inside the bins if they're going to put things away. The old Post-it notes work well. There's so many different things that they can actually use to help them. A timer, like, that having a timer just to put it on to try to keep them focused on the task. Because a lot of times, they'll start a task and next thing they know, they're in a different room and they're starting a task in that room. And then they've moved to a different room and try to keep them in one area so they can finish the task can be a challenge. So if they can have a timer, sometimes that helps. And also eliminating distractions. Those distractions are huge, right? So if your phone's going to be ringing and pinging every time you get an email or a text message or something, you tend to grab your phone, you lose focus on what you're doing. So limiting distractions helps as well. Color coded items sometimes helps for them as well. So if you have color coded bins, like each member of your family may have a certain colored bin where, I don't know, Sally likes orange, so she's got an orange bin. Sometimes color coordinating works as well for families that have ADHD. File folders are colored sometimes works as well. So there's lots of different strategies. It's really just finding one that works best for you.
I love that. That's fantastic. Tell us about the Calm the Clutter program and a little bit more about what people can expect if they were to take your program.
If they were to take my program, they're going to go from feeling overwhelmed and stressed and not knowing where to start with their home organizing journey to having every single room of their home organized, and keeping it organized. But not only that, they're going to get support because that's extremely important. So you can DIY if you want. You can watch the modules, watch the videos. There's videos of my own home. Actually, it's my previous home because I downsized, but it's still the same philosophy. I still have the same products and things like that. So they can learn exactly how I organize certain areas to give them some ideas. We also talk about organizing products that you don't necessarily have to go out and spend a ton of money, but sometimes just a few products might help. So that's in there as well. And how to stay organized. There's checklists for every room on how to stay organized. But what I think works extremely well is the community and the support that you get, because you get access to a Facebook group, but you also get access to me weekly. Once a week, you can hop on a live call with me where we talk about, actually, I do additional training all the time. We just did a planning session. So that was our last call. Before that, it was on motivation, how to become more motivated. So there's always something new in that program, to be honest. And it's a one-time fee, and you have it for life.
Oh,
Access to
wow.
it. I know.
And where do people go to find that that information to join that program?
You can just go to kathymcEwan.com. So it's KATHYMC. You got it on there, right? kathymcEwan.com. And you can go to shop. And when you go to shop, it brings up the courses and programs we have.
So this, what we're looking at, and I'm going to leave this in the notes below also so that you will have that for anybody that's watching the replay, but it is the website where there is a free masterclass you can sign up for. If you scroll down, then it like pops up and it says, hey, join our free masterclass. And then also if you click on shop, then that takes you to the Calm the Clutter program, which is the membership for life to get in and to have access to those weekly calls.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. Yay. Awesome. You know what? I'm giving you a happy bell for that.
Yay.
That's awesome. What a great resource. Thank you so much. All right. Our time is up for today. I'm so sorry, but you guys, I've loved spending this time with you today, and this is it. So thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you guys go over and visit Kathy at her website. And Kathy, thank you so much for your time and attention today. This was so helpful.
Oh, thank you. It's been fun. I really appreciate it.